Good evening, and welcome to Live Chat. My name is Dr. Teresa Wilburn, and I am sitting in for the Honorable Dr. Reverend Mark Thompson here at Redemptive Life Christian Fellowship Church. And this evening, we're going to do something a little bit different. While I sit in, I'm joined with a panel of millennials who are going to talk about the series of events that have occurred in our communities recently and give you a different perspective, or give us a different perspective, because it's definitely not mine. Give us a different perspective of how they feel about things that are going on. And the latest event that kind of sparked this was the death of George Floyd, and in Minneapolis. And as a result of that, we have seen an eruption of different types of protests and marches and political things that have happened in our community. So what we want to do is find out from the millennials who will now take over in our society, and they will move forward with what happens in the changes in our community, if there are any changes to be done. So let me just introduce you, have the guests introduce themselves. I want you to give me your name, your age, and what you currently do. Okay. All right, go ahead and start. Yes.
Well, my name is Vaughn Thomas. I am 34, I think. My wife's going to be mad at me for that. But I'm 34. I'm currently an accountant at Northside Hospital.
Good, thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anexia Thompson. I am 23 years old. I'm the youngest of the group.
Yes.
But I am a recent graduate, and I'm just working on getting to law school.
Law school, yes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin Culberson. I'm 28 years old. I am part of the youth ministry here at our church, Redemptive Life. I'm a father of one, and also a husband, a husband of one too.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here and willing to participate in this dialogue. One of the things that I want each one of you to answer this, as you have seen the series of events unfold, dating back almost to February, I want to say Ahmaud Arbery happened right here in Georgia, in Brunswick, Georgia. Breonna Taylor was another one that I want to say happened in March. And then this last one in Georgia in May, recently in May. How has this made you feel? What feeling comes out when you see the continuous same type of events happening?
For me, right off the bat, is frustration. Like, just what is it going to take? What more do we need to do as African Americans, blacks, brown, whatever? What else do we need to do? And it's frustrating because you would think you're following the script that they lay out for you, and then this happens. So frustration.
I feel like everyone's initial reaction is sadness, anger, or rage, just all at one time. There's no way of really telling you the stages of how you felt even up to this day. Like in this moment, I still can feel all three at one time, and it's just heartbreaking that we have to go through this.
I would say I feel angry.
Okay.
I've been feeling like real angry during this time. And just, I always say some days I feel like Tupac, and then some days I feel like Martin Luther King.
Okay.
Some days I feel like singing, then some days I feel like swinging.
All right.
So just looking at everything that's going on, I've tried to make it my personal responsibility to try to learn more.
Okay.
Try to dig in and see what our forefathers have done to become successful and bring us this far, and try to advocate voting, trying to learn voting, and teach the younger generation. Even my son, I have a 2-month-old,
Okay.
and I want to teach him and educate him and show him that his future matters.
Right.
And what can he do to educate himself to not only better himself, but also the generation coming behind him, so that we don't make the same mistakes that we made. So that's the one thing I thought about, is just turning my anger into productivity.
Okay,
and not
good,
being
good.
destructive
Okay.
going forward.
All right. Have any of you participated in any of the activities or plan to participate in any of the activities that are going, any marches, any protests? I'm glad you mentioned voting, because we did have a primary
Yeah.
here in Georgia yesterday. Hopefully everybody participated in the primary,
Yeah.
yes, because that's one way of bringing about change.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one thing that you did. Any others or anything you plan to do?
For me, I haven't been out to the marches. I don't think I'll do the marches.
Okay.
But what I've done is participate more so in terms of the social media platforms, and keeping up with Black Lives Matter and what they post on social media in terms of what the group plans to do in terms of the boycotts or the blackout days and stuff like that. So that's how I participate. I've done the whole blacking
through
out of the
through
pictures and all
social
that good
media.
stuff. So that's what I've done so far.
I have been to the protests. I have been to 2 different type of protests. I went to, the first one that I went to was called an organized protest, and the second one was a spontaneous. And so the organized one, basically we stood in front of the Capitol, and we had a lot of people who were running for senator and different positions in Georgia come and
Okay.
speak to us about, you know, their position and what they're trying to do to change what's going on in Georgia and Atlanta, and just give us information on how we could better educate ourselves and better spread that education to people around us.
Good.
And that one was actually really great. Like, that was probably my favorite type of protest, just to get around people with the same mindset and communicate on how we can better make a change and connect that way. And then the second one I went to was a spontaneous one, which is basically kind of what a lot of what we saw initially in the beginning of the protests, where, you know, a lot of people, it's not organized, basically just people running the street, got the signs, the banners, posters, whatever, and marching around to get heard. And so I feel like, I mean, that one was also very interesting, a good way to connect, but people really at this point just want to be heard. They want to be seen. They want their voices to be out there. And I feel like this is a good way for them to express themselves. I do social media too. Post what you know, share it to somebody. And so I just feel like, yeah, that's how I participated.
The one thing, you know, I thought about when everybody shared what they just said is that we all have different ways of showing our protests
Absolutely.
and standing up. So I believe everyone has to look at what they're good at. You know, if it's protesting, protest. If it's social media, do the social media thing. And that's been a powerful tool lately, social media, because a lot of racists are being called out about the things they're posting now, and they're losing their jobs. So this is like something new now, where we can go to social media and say, hey, we're not going to allow.
Well, it's the millennials' way of doing things.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So that's why social
Yeah.
media
So we're not going
has been the platform.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're not going to allow that. We're not going to allow the racism and the hate. And so me personally, what I've been doing lately is just digging into what I've been dreaming about for the longest, and that's writing a book.
Oh, good.
And I'm going to do it.
Do it.
And I want to do it mainly for my son. He's like the motivation behind it. And what I want to do is have a blueprint for the generation behind me. So when they come out of school, they have a blueprint into adulthood.
Okay.
Because most of the times when we come out of school, we just kind of know schooling, but we don't know about voting.
Right.
We know we got to go back to the Schoolhouse of Rock. Is that what it's called? The
Schoolhouse Rock.
We got to go back to the Schoolhouse of Rock, the executive branch, the legislative branch.
A
the
way of
judicial-
learning
The
it.
way of learning, because we always hear voting, you know, go vote. But a lot of the kids, one, they don't know their identity, and then two, they don't know their purpose, and then three, they don't know their significance in the world. So I feel this is something God has put on my heart, what I must do in order to make change.
Okay.
The way I see it.
Absolutely.
See, it's one thing to say to the younger generation, go vote, go vote, go vote. But most of them think, oh, I'll just vote in November, 4 years' time, get Donald
Absolutely.
Trump out.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
we need to teach them. And I think even us as millennials coming up, and that's one of the things I learned even since coming to Redemptive, was the importance of the local elections.
Absolutely.
And being able to go out just recently for the primary, me and my wife, we took our daughter out and we vote, and I'm telling you, it felt so powerful.
Yes.
Being able to now look at the results and see, okay, yeah, I voted for that dude, got
Yes.
a spot, voted for that one, he's going to do a
Absolutely.
runoff. But you can see the impact when you vote at the local level, and then that further impacts the education system, the way the communities are marked out, because we know they're marked out.
Right.
And then it impacts the federal system. You may not see that right now, but it impacts it eventually. So we got to teach them, look, it's important to vote, but here's why you vote, and vote down here, not just
Right.
up here. You got to start from the foundation and go up. So that's a good way.
Let me ask you, what is the change you want to see? What do you want to see different? What's the change?
I want to see us become the politicians, us become the
When you
doctors, the
say
nurses.
us.
I'm talking about people who look like me. And it's time for us to get active and to educate, just how you were speaking on educating ourselves or educating yourself. It's time for us to become what we want. Like, even how, yes, voting is a change, but politician, why can't we go out and become what we want to see? It's time to remove and replace with what we want. That's what
Okay.
I feel.
So you would like to see more African American.
Not even just African American, Hispanic, Indian.
Absolutely.
If
Different.
America is supposed to stand for this, we are interracial, we combine everything. Let's do that,
Okay.
because it's not showing that right now.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, I'm from a place where racism is technically pretty new to me, because
Okay,
I'm
tell
from
me, where are you from?
I'm from Jamaica.
Okay.
And in Jamaica, we have a motto that says, out of many, we're one people.
Yes.
Like, if you look at our parliament building, we have a few whites, dark skin, because Jamaica's pretty much more dark skin, but we have the mixture. And then in the society at large, we definitely have that mixture. So for me, I heard about racism, I saw it on TV. I'm like, I've never experienced it until I came here.
Wow.
Even while being here, and even talking to some friends back home, they'll say, you're probably just so desensitized to it that you don't even see it. But I've seen it. I've heard it. I work with some persons that are of that creed who turn around and say, you know what, meeting you has really changed my perspective. One of my favorite persons at work, initially, I'm telling you, you look at her and yeah. But we've gotten to the point where she's invited me out. We've talked. She was my Christmas pixie. She bought me the best Christmas pixie gift I've ever had. So we've gotten to the point where she look at me and say, man, it's so good to see someone like you work as hard as you do for your family, for your church, stand up for what you believe in. You're not afraid to speak out. Because I'll be in meetings with them and be like, look, we ain't going to talk about Trump today. No, it's not going to happen. You got to be able to stand up in your space and be able to talk for yourself. So for me, what I want to see is change like that. Coming from a situation where I've never experienced it.
Got it.
To now be in a position where I know it's out there and know I'm in that space, but being able to still impact someone
Yes.
else by getting to
Yes.
know them, by getting
Yes.
them to know me. And we're all now being in a space now where we're like, together we're better than it just be me over here, you over there, and I'm having my Black Award show over there, you're having your whites, I want to be invited, but you're not invited
Yeah.
to my... We got to find a way
Way
to
to
be
come together.
inclusive, and that's what I want to see.
That's what you. Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Well, with me per se, I want to see us become more financially literate in our communities. You look at the statistics, and you see that with the black community, I believe the dollar only stays in our hand for like 6 hours. I believe that's what it says. You look at our Asian brothers and sisters, it stays in their hand for like 28 days
Got it.
before it goes out there, and then our Jewish community stays 19 days.
Okay.
But I want to see us kind of get a grip on that finance, understanding the basics.
Understand
a lot
the
of kids that come out of school, we have the internet, they don't know how to balance a checkbook.
Right.
They have to learn how to balance a checkbook because the computer might not be there all the time. Learning the difference between liabilities and assets. Just understanding that with financial power in our community, we can create some change. We really can. And just, slowing down on the I want it right now, today type of mindset, and start to think ahead in the future. Because, you look back on the past, we already have a one leg in the race, and we just had to keep hopping and hopping faster and faster, because you look at the past, you see what they did with putting us behind financially. So it's our responsibility to try to pick a book up and learn,
Absolutely.
It's all in the book. So my stance today is just education.
Yeah.
Yes.
Be
Well,
educated.
that's what I do. I'm in education, and that's what I do. How can the church be involved in the changes that you would like to see? What's the church's role in the changes that you would like to see?
This just came to me, but I think within the church we should have more dialect with the older generations and the younger generations. I think it's time for them to spread that knowledge, and for us to
Wait a
have
minute.
that.
How old did you say you were?
I am 23.
Are there people younger than you are young?
But I
I get it. Like the teenagers. Teenagers need
it's
to
time for us to
have a
have that
dialogue.
dialect. Well, you can understand my mindset as a younger person, and I can understand your mindset as a, much knowledgeable, well experienced person. And we can just bounce off of that. I feel like we kind of lack communication as far as that can go. I just feel like we can grow and spread knowledge within ourselves so we can spread it outside whenever we leave the church.
Okay. So the church can serve as a platform for an open discussion with the various generations.
Yes.
Good.
For me, I think what I would like to see the church do is develop more programs to help with the psychological trauma that we're suffering from. I wish I had my finger on something, because I know Rev is going to say, well, if it's in your spirit, it's on you to do it.
Absolutely.
But I think a program that deals with that trauma, because when I watched that video, it broke me. You know what I mean? I saw just looking in his eyes through the screen, and I'm
you're
like,
speaking of
the George Floyd video, and I saw it broke me, and I said, okay,
absolutely.
What how do you recover from something like that? That is always going to be etched in your mind. So I think the church needs, if we can come up with something, some sort of a program that's different. I know I spoke to my wife about it. She was saying something like the AA meeting, where I guess we would invite the community in to just have a way to express.
Okay.
Again, being a platform where you can talk about how you're feeling, talk about where you want to go, what do you want to see, what do you need, just get that out of the community would help as well.
The church can act as another platform.
Conduit to give some persons a way to just get it off their mind.
Get it off their mind.
I agree with both of them. What they just said, I agree with them. And just on top of that, I feel like we have to do what the church, what the real church has always been told to do, and that's to be the hands and feet for Jesus.
Yes.
And to also see the world through his eyes, and doing everything they just said. If we can do everything they just said, and show the world that, yes, we do suffer like you suffer, but we suffer differently. And so we know there's joy coming right after that.
Joy is coming. I like that.
And so we can show the world also. We can show the world the God that we serve, a God that can not only be sovereign, but also relate to a lot of things we're going through with his suffering. A God that came down in human flesh and suffered on our behalf. Yes. And so we worship a God who knows everything we're going through. And so we can show the world that, and show the world, hey, we're suffering with you.
Yes.
How can I help you? The AA meetings. I'm sorry. the AA meetings. Getting the older generation and the younger generation together, like my sister said, and just having those conversations.
Okay, and you think that will be very helpful
It would.
as well?
Yeah. it
Good,
would.
good. And in addition to what we're going through socially, we have a pandemic
Yeah.
going on. So I think that is absolutely added
Yep.
to some isolation where people are not able to come together and gather
Yep.
and be there for one another. So it just so happens that we're going through a pandemic in addition to
Just
society going through trauma and change, and because we need each other. We need each other. So churches have not been able to gather and do some of the things that you have mentioned. But pretty soon, we will be able to come together and do some of the things that you've mentioned to bring about healing for our community, because the church is here to help with that healing. That's our purpose for being here. And my next, and probably my final question, but because I want you to really come out with, where do you see this going? Do you actually see change happening?
Yes.
Do you see change? What change has happened? What is different now?
I feel like with all the protests and the rioting and the looting or whatever it is you want to call it, it got your attention. That's the
Okay,
first
so
change.
one thing that needed to happen, a change that needed to happen, was the attention.
Yes, we have always had this issue. There has never been a day where black people have not had an issue of not being seen. And now we have your attention with what we're doing.
So did it take that? Did it take the looting as well?
Yeah,
It took
it did.
rioting and looting.
It did.
Okay.
And I understand people are against that form of protest. You can be for it or against it, however you choose. It's up to you. But it got your attention. You
Okay.
see me now, and you know why. And it's funny that you mentioned that. Did it need to happen? A lot of companies now that we've mentioned are on Instagram talking about they're for all life matter. What is it? Black Lives Matter. Sorry. And stating that they're with us because they don't want, their business to go under wraps. And it's just sad. It's like, are you really with us? Let me see what your corporate office looks like. What's behind doors that I need to see before I can say that you really are for Black Lives Matter? And it's just, it's sad that we had to get to this point, actually causing a scene for us to be seen. And we get called now thugs and just robbers now because we're doing all of this type of protesting. But you see me, you're gonna continue to see me until I see some change. That's just.
But the funny thing is, they look at our form of protest and they call us robbers and gangsters and this and that. But let one of their teams win some sort of a championship. And look at the destruction that causes.
What a good analogy.
Exactly.
What a good analogy.
I think about that all the time. And even, the man up top, he'll sit there and him himself, when you come out as the leader of the free world and you're going to say, look, I don't want to see what you're doing. I don't want to hear what you're saying. But if the looting don't stop, we're going to come out and shoot. That is not what you want to hear from the top. Yeah. I'm not necessarily saying come out and say, oh, Black Lives Matter right away. No, I want you to come out and say, look, we're going to do what it takes to get to the bottom of this. We're going to ensure that policies are put in place to not have something like this reoccur. We're going to ensure that the persons who did it are held accountable and held accountable properly. Because, hey, if they catch you with some weed, you're probably going to jail for like 15, 20 years. I guarantee you, he ain't going to get that. Like, I know it's a second-degree murder charge, and he's probably still not going to get the maximum extent of the law. But they'll lock a black person up for years for just a few pills that doesn't have the right, date on them or something. And I'm like, if you're in a position of power and your citizens or your subjects are calling to you for change, calling to you for help, we're destroying things, just trying to get your attention. Your first word shouldn't be, oh, I'm going to send my army to shoot you. Your first word should be something that tells us, look, I hear you and I'm going to do something about it. Even if it takes another 4 years, give us a chance to say, you know what, let's put him back in there and see what he does. But now you're like, I don't care what y'all said. I have my base. I don't need to hear from y'all. But no, we're all Americans. We're all suffering some way, somehow. And it really does bring some sort of a hope to see the other races out there with us.
Absolutely.
But how long are they going to be out there for? You know, are you going to be with me for the long haul? Like, what's next for that?
What I see is, which is a lot different from the protests in the 60s and the 70s, is a different racial help and background. African Americans cannot do this alone. We need all backgrounds, color, races, creeds, to join in with us to help change policy, to help change education, to help change all of the things that you have mentioned that need to be changed. African Americans are still the minority. And at one time, I would say in the 60s and 70s, it was the largest growing minority, but it's no longer in the United States the largest growing minority. The Hispanic population is growing faster than the African American population. So in addition to the African American population, we need the Hispanic, we need the Indians, we need all of everything that represents this country. And it is very good, and especially for me, to see so many different white, black, Latinos, come out and help support the cause, because it is a reflection of what this country is. So it is important that everyone join in. And like you said, the video of George Floyd really got to all over the world. You see marches and protests all over the world. It's a very difficult video to look at. And I, to be honest with you, have not watched it all the way through. There is absolutely no way that I would do that. It is just simply too traumatizing. However, if you look at TV or if you look at social media, I've probably seen it enough to know, yeah. So in the very beginning, I've watched the beginning of it, but I will not. For me, it's just too traumatizing. However, most people have seen it all over the world. And you have seen people from all over the world be involved, how they can be involved in protesting and making sure that their politicians are hearing, because they're part of our global society. And our global society has joined us and have gotten involved to make sure that their policymakers are behind them, which will be a domino effect for us. So when you have friends and family members all over the world, which we do, in all walks of life, we talked about the workplace. We've talked about, our extended family that are of different colors. We need them. We need them. And we have to reach out and say, we're in this together. White, black, brown, blue, whatever. We're in this together. We're all God's children. And we want to do God's work. That's what we're here. We're here to be a vessel for the Lord. And part of that is bringing in all, people from all over. One other thing I wanted to mention or ask you, how do you see yourself moving forward now? And what's different about that? Is your platform different? Do you walk different? Do you talk different? Is there something, was this life-changing for you? Before you may have, I know you're going to law school and you're a certain type of attorney, but does this do something to your career as far as you moving forward? What does this make you a different father? Does this make you a different husband? What has this done for you that has made you a different person?
I know for me, I have a 2-year-old daughter, and me and my wife, we have talked about it numerous times. What kind of a world do we want her to come up in?
Absolutely.
And even before having our daughter, we used to say, man, it's scary, what's
Yeah,
coming.
Right.
But I know for us, we always say we want our daughter to be brought up in situations, school and stuff like that, where she's exposed to not just African Americans, she's exposed to every race. That way, she can develop her own experience. She can have an idea of what you're like, what I'm like, make her own bond, form her
Okay.
own opinion, stuff like that.
Good.
That has not changed in a negative way. It
Okay.
has changed wherein we're gonna make the effort to have her know
Okay.
your roots, know what they're about.
Right.
You make your choice, but we're gonna educate her so she can be in a position where she can make choices that are appropriate for her going forward. She can make the decision to say, all right, I am African American. I'm standing on my African American background and platform. You're my friend. Come with me. Here is why. See me. See what we're about. Know what we've had before race was an issue, and be able to build on that. And then I'm hoping that friend will be able to, spread that, form that. What do you call it? Just like how COVID's moving from people to people, networking pretty much.
Okay.
So we'll just develop a network with other races, and that's the
Yes,
channel
it's
I'm
very-
hoping to go
it's
through
very,
from her.
very
So
important.
even for me as a young man going out now, a lot has changed. Like I've been driving and I've gotten stopped by the police, and I'll let them come up. I ain't got nothing to hide. I do what I do, and I do it cordially. Now it's like in my mind, I'm already thinking, all right, I get stopped. My windows need to be down. My license and stuff need to be out. My firearm need to be disassembled and put where he can see it. My hands are on the wheel. My wife needs to know what she needs to do.
Yes.
Daughter needs to know
Yes.
what she needs to do.
Yes.
That's everything that's going through my mind.
Yes.
And one of my first jobs coming to America was something similar to a police officer, a public safety officer in a hospital.
Oh, really?
And I know one of the things when I went out was, one of the rules was, I want to go home with all the holes I came out with, which means I'm going to do whatever it takes to get back home to my family. It's the same mindset now. I'm doing whatever it takes to get back home to my family. And I know the officer standing at my window is thinking the same way. So here's what we going to do. You want to make it home? I want to make it home. What do you need me to do to get home? You get what I'm saying? That's the kind of mindset. I'm not going to say if he's being all rude and boisterous, I'm going to sit there and take it like a child. Come on now. We're grown men. I just don't want to be shot. I just don't want to be killed. I need to see my daughter grow up. That's my mindset. What does it take for us to have a smooth transaction here where you're going home to your family and I'm going home to my family, even if I got to take you to court to challenge this ticket, if that's what it takes, then whatever, I'll take it.
But let me ask you this. Okay, so you had that mindset even before this chain of events and before this.
The mindset.
So what is different now?
The mindset mainly applied to my job. Before, like I said, I didn't really experience it. I didn't know what it was like. But now it's a case of I'm applying that mindset
Got
to
it.
my daily life.
Got it.
Not just in my interaction with the police, but even in my interaction with people within my own race, because we all
Yes.
know we kill each other too. So even people within my own race, I'm applying that mindset like, dude, let's talk, let's get this business done. I'm going home the way I came out here. You're going home the way you came out here, and we're going to do whatever it takes to make
Yes.
that get done.
Yes.
I'm just applying that across the board.
Okay.
I'm trying to teach that to my wife. I'm trying to make sure my daughter knows that as she
Yes.
grows as well. I'm just applying it across the board.
Yes.
That's all it is. That's all that's changed about me right now.
Okay. All right.
Just to piggyback on what Vaughn just said, being a new father, it's made me look at the world a whole lot different. I think the first time Atlanta was like marching, it was like on a Friday or something. And I had my son in my arms, and I was just sitting on the couch crying. I just felt all the emotions, and I was just sitting on the couch crying. And the one thing I thought about is, for a black man, fatherhood looks a whole lot different from the average white man. Fatherhood is not just me throwing the football to my son or showing him how I drive the car, or
Right.
showing him the simple things of life. But
Right.
now fatherhood for a black man is to show him how to survive.
yeah.
And it shouldn't be like that.
Right.
Like what Vaughn said.
So this made the chain of events made this more relevant for you.
More
It
relevant.
brought it back to, you knew this. You knew
Exactly.
this.
Yeah.
But it reminded you.
It reminded me.
It reminded you
Yeah.
that as a black father with a black son, that this is something you have to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And he's like the cutest little thing.
Absolutely.
And you would think, like, who would want to harm him
Hey.
when he gets older?
I saw one of the signs. My favorite signs from the protests was a little kid holding a sign that says, "At what point do I become a monster?"
Yes.
Cutest little kid ever.
Yes.
But I'm thinking, I'm sitting there and I'm looking at that sign, and the answer that came to my mind was right about 8. Sorry,
eight-
but
8 years
right
old?
about 8. But that's the scary reality for us as black people is how do you prepare your kids? Man, I've spoken to my mother sometimes leaving the house, and I say, "Mommy, I'm going
Yeah.
to Walmart," and then she called me 5 minutes later. "You okay?" I'm like, "Mom, what's wrong with you?" But now that all this happened, and we're talking, she'll say, "Dude, you just don't know what it does to me when you
Okay.
leave the house and then you call back and say I'm okay." It takes so much off of her. So when I was a child, I used to complain all the time. I ain't
Absolutely.
calling you. Why I gotta
Right,
call?
right,
Now
right.
I call her.
Yeah, exactly.
I text her. I say, "Look, we're home. We're good," because I know
She's
now.
worried.
Even my daughter goes to school, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, God, I hope she's okay. God, protect her. God, surround that building. Fill that place up with your presence, Lord. Those are the kind of things, because we know what
Good.
can happen while she's
Good.
out there. And then when I go to pick her up and I see her running down the hallway, I'm telling you, that's the greatest
That's
feeling
the best
ever.
feeling.
Just to know, okay, well, she's safe. And then we get in our car, and I'm like, God, please don't let no police stop me. I just want to get home. And then I get home, and then you just whisper that word of prayer, "Thank you, Jesus."
And it takes a village, really, to do all of this. I know I don't have any children of my own, but I have 2 nephews. And many times you see them come to church with me, the 2 nephews. And we were on vacation last week with all of this happening, but we had to stop and say, okay, let's go over the rules again. We're on vacation. We're not home where everybody's doing we're not in the midst. But let's stop and, okay, now what happens, because they're just learning to drive, what happens if a police stops you? I wanted to say, I know we've taught you this, but let's go over the rules again. And they say, "Okay, Auntie, we put the hands on the wheel," and I'm like, "Okay, as long as you know the rules."
But it's sad because it's like our kids can't be just kids. They just can't be kids, and we have to have those conversations with them and let them know, hey, you can't do what everybody else do, but you can be all you can be.
Isn't that interesting? You can't do what everybody else is doing. And you have to teach. That's is that the reality? For a black man, you can't do what everybody else is doing.
Scary.
And the sad thing is, even with saying that, even when you're looked at, you have to, as a black man, it's a lot of pressure. As a black woman, it's a lot of pressure to be held at a high standard and still be looked down upon. You're doing your best every day. Like Vaughn just said, you driving the car, that's like the most nervous thing that can happen to you. You drive in the car and you think about the cultural colloquialism of I can't breathe.
Yes.
And that's what every black person in America feel. Whether it's you on the ground and a police officer have his knee on your neck, or you in a corporate office and
Absolutely.
you gotta put that mask on to not
Absolutely.
be intimidating. Or if you driving the car, you got both hands on the steering wheel and you got your seatbelt on, you haven't did anything wrong, but still you feel nervous. You can't breathe.
Right. And I think as we talk about it, the African American community knew it. We knew that we had to live to a different standard. We knew we had to do things differently. We knew we had to teach our children something differently. But the recent chain of events opened it up to the world. And it let the world see what we have been having to do. Many people, I know a lot of my white friends say, "I didn't know that's what you were going through. I didn't know that's what you were going through." Now they understand. So, and I think the attention that you talked about opened up for the platform for the white community to see and stop and listen
Yeah.
and look and say, I am sorry that you had to go through this. And, you know, I think one of the social media things that has been going through of a lot of white people saying, I'm sorry. I am sorry because I did not know what your experience was.
I guess my thing on that standpoint is, why did it take this for you to say, I'm sorry, or why did it take for this to happen for you to notice?
I don't think they, truly, I don't think they understood.
Which is kind of, that's just a whole nother conversation. It hurts because it's like, you guys kind of built the system of how things are ran around here. So it's, now you see where we're hurting. And I guess as far as what you were talking about, the question with change, that's what needs to change with all of us. We need to have a conversation with white people and make white friends, so that way we can educate them on what we go through, and they can educate us on, you know, what they see. Because a lot of the times when we even just walk by them on a regular basis, we're thinking, you know, is this person racist? You know, do I make eye contact? Can I say, hey, what kind of conversation can I have with this person? And I feel like that's what needs to change. We have to change our mindsets as well, and not, you know, hold these narratives or stigmas against them, and they can't hold stigmas against us, so that we can see and make the change. It should not have taken somebody getting kneed in their neck for you to realize that this world needs change. That's not right.
So where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? This is one of many dialogues that need to happen. Where do we go from here?
And I know this is a tough
It
question.
sounds like a song. It sounds like a song.
Very
Where do
tough
we go
question.
from
Exactly.
here? It's like
But,
where do we? What's the next step?
Well, first of all, like you said, we have their attention, and then we've all reiterated we need to talk. So next, I want to see. For me, I think we need to go where policies are being developed within the police force. I'm not saying disband the police force. I'm not saying defund them, because we know the importance of having the police force.
And we must make that point.
Yeah, we know the importance. We support the law and order. Exactly.
Yes, absolutely.
But I want to see change in terms of the culture within the force itself. Like I said, one of my jobs was public safety. And one of the unspoken, unwritten rule was, I'm my brother's keeper. Therefore, we do what we do to get the job done. We come out of the room, you ain't got to know what happened in the room. We did what we did to get the job done. That culture doesn't sit well in public, out here with races and lives on the line. The culture within the police force is, if I see you do something, if I speak out, then I get punished. Right? I was reading a story today where a lady, she's a cop, and she went out with her squad and they arrested a guy, African American, had him cuffed, and her partner started choking him. And she said she reached in, pulled him off, and they did the report, and she got fired. Lost her pension, lost all that. She's taking him to court right now. She's out there protesting with the groups right now and all that. But the point is, she tried to speak up. She tried to do what was right, and she got punished. A lot of officers are out there. There are other officers mentioned within the article who are being punished or currently undergoing punishment because they spoke up.
Yes.
We need to develop policies within the force that says, look, speak up. We got you. We're going to protect you. We're going to keep you safe. And then when you speak up and we know that Officer Tom has 6 things on his record, it shouldn't be more than 2 or 3.
Right.
At my job, if I'm away from my desk 2 or 3 times, I'm probably going to get written up. Maybe by the 3rd one, I'm going to lose my job.
Absolutely.
So why are you out here with 21 things on your records? Like, how does that even make sense? Why are you still getting money from my tax money?
So that's a change we need to see, a change within the culture, of the police force, or within the department of the police force. So we have that. We're going to note that. That's one of the changes that we need to see. That would help move things forward, so that officers who see wrongdoings within the police force have protection, and they are not going to lose their job
Exactly.
or their
Their
livelihood
benefits.
because they come out and speak.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a good point that we have to make, and it's important that leaders in the law enforcement community hear that type of change needs to happen. Many of them know it; they know it. However, we have to see. I think there's one police department that wants to publish to make public record of infractions on police
Which I think is important
police
as well.
records.
Yeah.
It's public record. They make public money, so
Should be.
it should be public record if they have 12 infractions on, so that those types of things are not held secret. And as long as it's not breaking a law, it's not a person. It's not
Yeah,
anything.
no personally
personal
identifiable
information,
yeah.
that is about them. However, if they have done something wrong, so that they don't go and get hired and do the same things down the street at
Exactly.
the other next local.
There is
police
no way, in my current role, if it's ever written somewhere out there on the web that, accountant Vaughn Thomas embezzled $100 million, that I'm going to go out and get another accounting job. So why is it that a cop can beat someone down in this city and drive 2 counties over and get another job in the same role, maybe even more pay, and do the same thing again, and then go to another side of the country and get hired? Like, that don't make no sense to me. So that database, and I think I heard politicians talking about it, but that database is needed where we put all their infractions out there so we can know who these persons are and do something about it.
Well, I agree with Vaughn just said. Like, we got to start pushing the change for these laws to start changing. And even going back to what I was saying about education, not just looking at who's ahead of the office, but who's in the house.
Right, and I think we talked about that with the local laws, the school
Yeah.
board, the
Yeah.
school board.
Yeah.
Voting in people in the school board who are going to make changes to make sure that our kids are safe
properly.
in school and they have the right type of curriculum
Yeah.
in front of them so that they can learn all of the things that we're talking about, because what just happened is history.
Yep.
So we're living history in the making.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely, because you have to look at who's writing the laws also, who's writing the laws and pushing the laws to the person that's accepting the law and saying yes or no, or doing whatever he wants with the law. So back to what you were saying, we have to look back and see how people, like the 1955 Montgomery boycott, how it took 381 days of commitment to get that done.
Yeah.
So
Sticking it out.
we have to do more than just social media and
Yes.
posting one day and then the next day forgetting about
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. And in closing, and we're wrapping up here, just summarize for me 2 things that you want to see change. I know you said education and something. You said
Culture, of course.
generational conversations and something. So 2 things in closing, and then we'll wrap it up. Go ahead.
I want to see, I don't want America to treat us better than the next man, but just that equal treatment. Like Vaughn said, if you're enforcing the law, then don't turn around and do the opposite to us. We look up to you to protect us, and sometimes it's not just black and white, it's black and black. Sometimes we need protection in those neighborhoods too. So that's the one thing I want to see change. And I'm gonna go back to what I just said. I've been saying all day is education, us starting in homes and not just allowing the schools
Starting
to
in
teach
home.
us. Yeah.
And I think we got a lot of taste of that. Well, since thank you very much. Since schools have been out since March, and so a lot of home teaching has been going on recently.
Respect to the teachers also. I want to put
Thank
that out
you,
there. I
thank
love
you,
teachers.
thank
Teachers
you,
deserve
thank
the most
you.
money
We
in
love
the
it.
world.
Yeah.
We love it. We love it. Teachers love it. But yeah, starting at home, the education. Education, I think you mentioned it, about our own culture,
Yep.
about our own history, about our families, and what we would like to see them do so they can go out. And children model what they see.
Yep.
Let me just say that.
Definitely.
So what you do is what they're going to do.
Yep.
Okay.
I would like to see change. I stated this before, but remove and replace us to become what I want, what we need to see, what our children. I don't have no children right now, but what I would like my children to see whenever they go to the doctors, whenever they see politicians, it's time for us to become what we want.
And you're doing that. You're becoming a lawyer. Yes.
Yeah, for me, the change I want to see is more inclusivity and more outreach in terms of church programs, just being more, reaching out to the juveniles in our community, because we know even here in Atlanta, a lot of the crime is committed by juveniles and they end up becoming part of the system, and then the cycle starts all over. So we just need to, one, be more inclusive as a group, not just black people over here, white people over there, Indians over there. No, I think we all need to be more inclusive. That's one. And then just having more community outreach, reaching out to our juveniles, pulling them in, and trying to build them up in the way we think they should go.
Okay. And you're doing that. You're starting that from home, as you mentioned, with your own family. And not only with your children, and you're making sure that your wife and everybody understands what is going on and what role they are going to play in the future. Okay? So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Again, this has been wonderful. I think this is the beginning of many to come. I think that the people who are involved now are in it for the long haul. And not just black people. I think, as we talked about, all over the world, they haven't stopped protesting. They haven't stopped changing. They're still there. There's a march, I think, scheduled in Washington on August 28th that I think Reverend Al Sharpton has called on the nation's capital. And people from all over the world will be there. So we will continue and we will follow up. So thanks again for coming. And everyone, have a wonderful evening. And thank you for joining us this evening. Good night.